Namaskar and welcome back to the Saturn box. Today I'll be talking about Sade Sati, Sade Sati for the Pisces moon. I've already made a video a few weeks back where I've spoken about Sade Sati for Aries moon. For Aries, Sade Sati has just begun, right? So how do we see Sade Sati? Let me just quickly recap it for people who get some confusion or want to clarify this again. Sade Sati is always seen from the moon, right? So whichever sign moon is occupying in your natal chart, you have to see one sign behind. When Saturn enters one sign preceding the moon sign is when your Sade Sati begins. So if you have Aries moon and Saturn enters Pisces, that means the first phase of your Sade Sati has begun. So Saturn will transit through the sign of Pisces for the first 2.5 years, and then when it enters Aries for 2.5 years, that is when the second part of your Sade Sati will happen. And when it goes through the sign of Taurus, that means your Sade Sati will go through the last phase, that is the setting phase, and that totally comes up to 7.5 years. So this is just very quickly about Sade Sati. Now, if you have moon in the sign of Pisces, that means your Sade Sati began when Saturn entered the sign of Aquarius. That is when your first phase began, and now you are undergoing the second phase of Sade Sati when Saturn will transit over the sign of Aries. That is when your last phase of Sade Sati will happen, and then when it exits Aries, enters Taurus, your Sade Sati will finish. So when I look at Pisces moon, that means Sade Sati is happening. You are in the middle of the 7.5 period. Sade Sati means 7.5 years. So you are in the middle of the 7.5 years, and this is the most intense phase where we say that Sade Sati has come on your Hriday. That means the heart. So Sade Sati affects the whole body, and this is the middle portion. If you divide the Sade Sati period into 3 parts, this is your middle part of your body where it affects, right? Now the impact of Sade Sati is different from chart to chart. That we must understand, because a lot of people have fear about Sade Sati, and that is something which you should not have, which you should just lose the fear of Sade Sati to begin with. Sade Sati is different from one individual to the other. It depends on the phase of life you are in. So if you're undergoing your first Sade Sati, and one is a child, small child, say a 5-year or a 6-year-old child, then obviously Sade Sati is not going to be as impactful. Or if you are a very old person, if you are above 70, 75-year-old person, then also Sade Sati will not bother you as much. But if you are someone who's in the 20s, 30s, 40s, for that matter 50s also, that is when we need to evaluate the Sade Sati properly. And for this we need to see the natal chart. In your natal chart, how is Saturn placed, right? So we've spoken about the moon. We know that when we are talking about Pisces moon for Sade Sati, that means your moon is in the sign of Pisces. But we have to see how Saturn is placed with respect to the moon. How is Saturn overall in your birth chart? Is it debilitated? Is it badly afflicted? Is it in Mrityu Bhaga? There are so many parameters on which it is judged whether Saturn is good for you or not in your birth chart. And again, Saturn is very important because Saturn, number one, affects your longevity. It affects so many other things. Without the blessings of Saturn, anyways, nothing moves. You don't get married, you don't get a job until and unless Saturn gives an okay to it, right? So the final authority always remains with Saturn. Now, the second point is you also have to see the dasha which you are undergoing. So if you are undergoing Sade Sati, but your dasha, the Mahadasha which you're undergoing is pretty good, it is of a benefic planet and it is more or less giving you good effects, then also the impact of the Sade Sati is going to be lessened, or I would say the inauspicious results of the Sade Sati can reduce. If you are undergoing a challenging dasha, like for example, say for Sagittarius ascendant, you are undergoing the dasha of Moon which is your 8th lord, right? So Ashtamesh Dasha, though for Sagittarius ascendant, moon, moon doesn't get the Ashtam dosh as per Brihad Parashar Hora Shastra also, but still, all said and done, the 8th lord Dasha does pose some challenges. And to top it all, your Sade Sati also begins. So that means you have Moon Dasha for Sagittarius ascendant, and your moon is in Pisces. You are undergoing your Sade Sati also, middle phase of Sade Sati. This can be a challenging period for you because Ashtamesh Dasha anyways produces more or less inauspicious results. And then to top it all, if Saturn is the second or the third lord in the case of Sagittarius ascendant, and the Sade Sati is also coming, then the results can be, we can say that the results are not going to be as good. You'll put in more efforts, maybe the rewards won't be as much, or you'll undergo more mental pressure, more anxiety than otherwise. Now, what does Saturn do when Sade Sati happens? Remember, Saturn is a Karma Karak planet. Saturn is the planet of justice. It is the planet of Karma Karak. And whatever you have done, Saturn brings it to the fore. Saturn brings it to the front and produces results accordingly. Some deeds can be of this lifetime. Some deeds can be whatever you are carrying for a very long time with the soul, right? Whatever your soul is carrying through. So usually during the period of Sade Sati, a lot of things fructify. Some good things also fructify. A lot of people rise to a very good status, a very good position of power, and we can see a lot of world leaders have grown to power during their Sade Sati, including our current Prime Minister. But sometimes Saturn, when it produces inauspicious results, or when it basically Saturn produces pressure on the moon, right? Saturn and moon are not good together. Saturn and moon together in the birth chart also, whenever we see this conjunction, we call it a Vish Yoga. So here in this period of Sade Sati, Saturn is impacting the moon in the middle phase, right? Directly impacting the moon. Your mental worries increase, your anxiety increases, your state of mind can become negative, or there can be a lot of issues or obstacles related to your profession, related to your job, primarily because Saturn is the Karka of service. So your job, your profession gets impacted majorly. Apart from that, your personal life also gets impacted. A lot of your relationships can get impacted. Remember, from the moon chart, if you see, Saturn impacts the 7th house directly. So 7th house is of your relationships, of your marriage, of your spouse, of all the partnerships you get into. So the direct impact is your relationships. If you're going through a bad phase in your marriage, and your natal chart also doesn't talk well in terms of your married life, then this can be a phase where things can go really down south, right? Apart from that, what does Saturn want you to do? Saturn wants you to rise up and face whatever comes your way. Saturn wants you to take up more responsibilities. It wants you to be accountable for your own actions, right? So that is something which Saturn wants you to do. It wants you to remain disciplined and humble. Remember, during the period of Sade Sati, especially during the second phase, I have seen this in my years of practice, because usually a lot of people do come and consult astrologers when the Sade Sati period is on. This is something which is really worth noting, and I do share your thoughts. Whenever your Sade Sati is on, usually you end up consulting some astrologer. You want some more guidance because there's a lot of confusion, because there's a lot of anxiety with regard to your future, right? So, and what does Saturn want you to do during this period? Saturn wants you to humble down, wants you to remain very, very humble and very disciplined. And that is actually the remedy for Saturn. So the more you stay humble, down to earth, and the more you take care of people around you without expecting too much, that is the key to sailing through your Sade Sati with less pain, right? With less pain and less problems. Now, Sade Sati impacts the moon, and if moon is weak in your birth chart, so if you have, say, a debilitated moon in a in a challenged position, say in the Trik bhavas, or badly afflicted by any other planets, then in such a case, the impact of Sade Sati increases more because moon is anyhow weak. Or if you have you were born during the Krishna Paksh, during the waning moon phase where moon is not visible in the skies, right? So during that period, if you're born during that period, moon is anyhow considered weak. And to top it all, if it is also afflicted, then in such a case, Sade Sati really poses serious problems, right? What do you do during Sade Sati to sail through properly? As I said, humble down. Whatever you are, wherever you are, you may be a big shot, but during this time, you have to remain humble, you have to remain disciplined, and stick to your commitments. Whatever you are doing, whatever you have committed to anyone, just make sure that you stick to that commitment. So don't go back on your words, don't show your back to people when you've already committed to them. Check the company you have. So the friend circle, the company which you have has to be evaluated very properly, because during this period, one tends to slip into negativity, negative company, negative habits very easily. It's a very easy slope, right? So if your company is not good, you are going to be impacted, obviously. Check your relationships, because as I said, a lot of times the relationships cause a trouble. If Venus is already impacted, or if otherwise the relationship angle in your chart, especially the marriage angle, is already damaged, then during this period your relationships can go through a very bad patch. Check your reputation. As I said, check your company first, and then whatever you're doing during this period, Saturn is going to bring it out. So if you're doing something ugly, if you're doing something not so good, believe me, whatever deed you're doing, it's going to come up sooner or later. So make sure that uh, you don't do anything which can tarnish your name, which can tarnish your reputation. That is something which one has to be really careful about. And now for Pisces moon, remember, Saturn is going to be aspecting, Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, Saturn is going to be aspecting the sign of Sagittarius. And for the next 1 year, while Jupiter is transiting Gemini, Jupiter is also going to be aspecting the sign of Sagittarius. So wherever the sign of Sagittarius is in your birth chart, for example, if you have a Pisces moon, if moon is in your ascendant Pisces moon, and Sagittarius falls in your 10th house, Jupiter is also aspecting it from the 4th house, then a lot of events with respect to your profession, with respect to your work area, can come through. You may get into a new job, you may get into some big changes, or big responsibilities can come in your job. So the sign of Sagittarius has to be evaluated properly, because that is where the major events are going to take place for the next 1 year. Post that, Saturn will remain in the sign of Pisces, but Jupiter will move out to the sign of Cancer. So those good effects which I am talking about may not sustain for that long. So make sure that for the next 1 year, whatever you're doing, whatever karma you're generating is, you're very mindful about it. Then during this period, talking about the 10th house, during this period, when Sade Sati is happening, a lot of people have the tendency of quitting their current profession, current job. Because as I said, this is a period of mental worries and anxieties, more or less. And a lot of people get tempted to leave their current job, and sometimes they don't have anything concrete in their hand, and they take such major decisions. And this is something which I have seen in my own observations. Please avoid doing anything like this. You may be changing jobs, you may do something new during this period, but please be mindful. Do not quit your current occupation, your current source of income without having something ready already in your hand, right? So without a cushion, please do not make major changes in your profession. That is something which I strictly advise against to anyone during the period of Sade Sati, and of course I do check the dasha as well, right? Now, what do you do when Sade Sati is happening? When what are the remedies? That is the next query which will come. The first thing, discipline, humility. Take care of people who are under you. So, if at your workplace, your subordinates, or even the lowest level of staff you have at workplace, make sure that you are doing something good for them, right? Do not take anyone else's credit during this time. Whatever they are due for, please give it to them, right? Snatching of credit is anyways a bad thing. It damages your Saturn badly, it damages your sun badly. That is something which you should never ever do. Remember, even if you give a little more due to people, even if you give a little more credit to people around you, it's positive only. It will come back to you in some way or the other. It's not that it will be forgotten. Whatever good you have done to somebody, or if you're helping somebody progress in their life, it is that good karma which you're generating is going to come back to you in some way or the other. So don't you know be mindful about what you're doing, right? So, and don't worry about it, because good karma anyways will come back to you in one way or the other, right? Saturn is a vata planet. It affects the moon. During this period, doing pranayam is very important. So breath control, breath work is a very important remedy. It's a very effective remedy during your Sarasati. Also, the last and the most important thing during this period, if you worship Hanumanji, you will see the benefits. You will see the negativity reducing, right? Because Hanumanji again has has a positive impact on Shani. Anyone who worships Hanumanji stays away from the ill effects of Saturn or Shani, right? There is a story behind it, and sometime later I may share the story also. But during the Sarasati period, worshipping Hanumanji is a very very powerful and a very impactful remedy, right? So that was all about the Pisces moon and Sarasati, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Till then, do take care of yourself.